Good morning and happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is Justin Nimergood. I am the host of the Real Estate Rockstars podcast. I am so thrilled and honored to be joined by a fabulous guest today, Dr. Bruno Cignacco. And just a little bit about Dr. Bruno before we get into our time here today. He's a guest that brings a unique blend of both business and expertise and human connection to the table. Dr. Bruno is an international business consultant, property investor, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of The Art of Compassionate Business. His mission: to help companies become more profitable while staying compassionate to all their stakeholders. With decades of experience advising organizations worldwide, Dr. Bruno has taught at universities for over 20 years and trained hundreds of businesses on everything from international marketing to negotiation. His approach blends strategy, ethics, and people-first mindset, making him a powerful voice in creating business that truly makes a difference. Dr. Bruno, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin, for the invite. I feel very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Now, we had a chance to kind of catch up here before launching the show here today, learn a little bit about you, but in your own words, Dr. Bruno, who is Dr. Bruno, and what are you out there in the world really trying to create a charter for?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm a university professor. I was born in Argentina. I'm an Italian Argentinian, and I have been living in the UK for more than 18 years. I'm also British, and I have been working as a professor for more than 3 decades, not 2 decades, 3 decades,
wow.
and also as a consultant at the same time. We have been advising companies on international marketing, but lately we started developing some training on compassionate business. My latest research is on compassionate business, and I try to disseminate these ideas worldwide, and I try to make companies convinced that they can be profitable, but also human-oriented, that obtaining profits is not incompatible with developing a strong, long-lasting relationship with different stakeholders. I feel that there is a very important field of research that is developing regarding this topic, and I also see a lot of cases of companies that are human-oriented, that they care for customers, they take care of employees. They also build a strong relationship with different stakeholders, such as community members, suppliers, and business partners. And this is a different paradigm. Most companies tend to be profit-oriented, and I try to introduce a new model for companies not only to prosper, but also to improve the lives of all around them.
Yeah, it's such an important movement that we're seeing. And, as someone has done a little bit of my own, research and self-study, and also has actually gotten my own master's as well, and leadership. And when I went through that process, I can remember that we were at the forefront really of this concept of people over profit, right? And it's been a movement ever since. And it even distills down to the fact of, how do you create an employee base, a culture that's high EQ, maybe not necessarily high IQ, or where EQ is more important than IQ. So it's great to see that you're out there doing that work. It's so absolutely necessary, especially in a day like in society like today, where we have robotics, we have ChatGPT, right? We have all these tools at our disposal, all this AI, the intelligence is there. What are us humans supposed to do now, right? And I think it's to be led and to lead with emotion and with that at the forefront. So thank you for the work that you do, Dr. Bruno. I think it's so absolutely necessary in today's
I agree with your views, and I want to say that most companies tend to be profit-oriented because they have a narrow awareness of the business environment. They believe that pursuing profit is the main goal, but in practice, they forget that they are reliant on stakeholders. They cannot obtain profit without customers, without employees, without community members, without suppliers. So wouldn't it be nice to help these stakeholders so that we can be helped by these stakeholders in return? So we have these stakeholders on our side, because when you support customer, when you support employees, when you support the suppliers, and you look for win-win agreement in each of these situations, these stakeholders tend to cooperate naturally. There is a lot of research on this point, and it's very clear because companies are interdependent with all these stakeholders. They cannot succeed without them. And you mentioned artificial intelligence. That is a very important trend and it's very useful. But the most important resource in any company is not artificial intelligence, is not finance, is not information, but it's the human being. Because the human being is a meta resource. It's a resource that will help companies generate new technology, new products, new services, new systems. If we don't care for the most important asset in this company, in any sector, well, this company is fighting on their foot, because the idea is that they are not aware of the meta resource, the most relevant assets. So this is a life-changing paradigm. This means that when companies grasp the new paradigm, they change the way they do things. They do not make decisions that could be hurting or harming any of the stakeholders. Why? Because by doing so, they will push these stakeholders away, and this stakeholder will tend to withdraw, not to cooperate, hurting the company in return.
Wow. If y'all aren't out there taking notes today, you're missing out, because he's absolutely dropping a masterclass here on what it is to be a successful, thriving business in the 21st century, obviously. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about your international consultancy, experience. We've kind of been digging into that for the last couple minutes here. But you also obviously are a TEDx speaker. You're also a investor, a real estate investor.
Yes.
I don't know if you can maybe speak on that just for a moment. Obviously this is a real estate focused show, but we bring people on from all different sects and walks of life and different backgrounds and experience. I would love you to share what is probably the most interesting or best piece of investment advice you could give to our listeners out there today.
The most important piece of advice, especially during a negotiation process. For example, you are the buyer and you are negotiating with the seller of a property. Look always for win-win agreements, which implies not only looking for conditions that are meeting each other's need, but also keeping the relationship alive. What I see that many cases, because a person or a company want to get a deal in property, they try to lower the price, knowing that by doing this will hurt the other party, for example, the seller, and they don't look for relational aspect. In any negotiation process, and I observe this not only in the property sector, but in other sectors, you have two main aspects. Substantive aspect of business in the negotiation process means price, the location of the property, the characteristic, the layout. These are conditions that could be very well written and measurable. But then you have relational aspect, how you treat each other, how you identify each other's need. Do you want to develop a long-term relationship, or is just a transaction? Because in property sector, long-term relationships are very valuable. Not only can bring up one opportunity, but can bring up a series of opportunities. What I observed in this sector, especially, most people go for the transactional approach. This means, we'll try, if I am the buyer, I will put the price as low as possible because I want to get advantage over the seller. And the seller will act in the opposite way. We'll try to put the price as high as possible because we want to get the highest profit. This can work only once. And this party probably won't see them again, each other, because they probably one party won at the expense of the other. This was a win-lose agreement. But when you're trying to only focus on the substantive aspect, and relational aspect implies, okay, how we can relate from the long-term perspective? How can we treat each other not in a manipulative way, but in a kind, supportive way? How can we look for an agreement using creative techniques such as brainstorming or different way of payment or support from other partners that will invest in this property? How we can work out in a creative way so that both of us, the seller and the buyer, can meet their needs. And this will be a different paradigm. What I see in most of the cases that is a win-lose. Someone will take advantage of the other, and some will have their needs fully met, and the other will have their needs partially met. This will not bring about a long-term relationship, and this is very important because in business, the relationship are the most important asset. We saw human beings are the most important asset, and this applies to the property sector. This applies to commercial property, to residential property, to any type of property, because at the end, people have not only economic needs. For example, buying and selling, economic needs means getting the highest profit or getting the lower cost. They have emotional need. They need to feel respected. They need to feel appreciated. They need to feel heard. They need to feel acknowledged. When you are imposing your price, for example, in a potential deal, and you're not respecting the offer that the other person tried to suggest, you are imposing conditions unilaterally without taking into account the other. This can be considered, from my perspective and the perspective of my research, manipulative. Why? Because you try to use the other person as a means to an end, getting for example, the property as low as possible, the price, or getting the property as high as possible if you are the seller. So this means that in practice, the approach should be, how can we, a question that I will ask in this negotiation processes is, how can we meet the needs of each other in this deal? How can we work out this deal in a creative way so that your needs are met and my needs are met? And this means breaking down the deal into different sub-variables. You don't consider only the price. You consider the price, the location, the means of payment. Will this be paid with a bank transfer? Will this be payment in a different way? Will there be a mortgage partially covering this deal or not? Will there be some partnership that will support this deal or not? So try to look for different variables. Break down the deal not only as considering it as a block, but break down into sub-variable and try to play with a different combination of variables to look for a deal that meets the need of each party.
Oh my goodness. I wish you would speak this truth into all the buyers and sellers that I've been working with this year. And it's so true. You know, the deals that I've had, you know, that have been the smoothest transactions are always the ones where we're able to find a middle common ground, that true win-win. And those cases, it's simple. It's like, yep, can we do it for that? Yeah, we can do it for that. We can do it for that. Okay. And we're agreeing on all this framework of terms and conditions. Yep. Okay. And like, boom, and you go. And it all works. But in the deals where people are just trying to get the upper hand, they just need to, and it's a little bit of greed too. I would actually throw into the mix too, Dr. Bruno. I mean, I feel like it's the need for greed. Like, get just a little bit more. If I can just get a little bit more of a discount, if I can just get a little bit higher of a price, if I can just get a little bit more, it's like, you don't really need that, right? And to your point, you know, I will take long-term relationships over short-term relationships all day, every day, because those are the ones that end up bringing around more deals later on.
Yes.
Transactional deals, that happens once, and that's probably the last time you're going to hear from that agent or from that client or whatnot. So that is
so true.
Advice.
And also, I want to mention something else. In any deal, you have emotional aspect. You want to leave the table, but both parties feeling positive emotion. You don't want to suggest a deal that will elicit resentfulness on the other party, resentment, so that they will make them feel that they will regret or regretfulness. You don't want this because this will break up the relationship. And as you clearly mentioned, if the relationship is stable and the win-win agreement comes up and people can agree on and meet each other's need, this can bring up new opportunities. You never know, because if they look for another buyer, you gave a good deal to this seller, and you look for another buyer in the future. If you treat them well in a respectful way and you acknowledge their needs, they're more prone to come to you. Why? Because it's the exception. It's uncommon. So they will look for a person that made them not only feel economically well, emotionally well. People are driven by emotion. There is a lot of research that all decisions, even the ones that appear to be rational, are emotionally driven. We rationalize in hindsight, but they are emotionally driven. And when you fail well closing a deal with a person, you are more prone to come up with this person in your mind when you have a new business opportunity.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Such good advice, y'all. If you're out there, again, I hope you're taking notes today because he's dropping some major knowledge. Now, we're going to pivot, Dr. Bruno, into our final segment. And this is where I'm going to ask you a couple fun questions. Like I said, like I shared with you before the show, these are just fun questions. They're make you think kind of questions. There's no right or wrong answer, but I definitely want to hear what your perspective is. Okay. So, first one is this. Let's say it's your 80th birthday. Who is there and what's going on? Kind of paint a picture for us. What's going on at your 80th birthday?
I'm 80. I'm 80. So supposing that I'm 80 and now 55 and 80, who will be there? Well, hopefully some of my friends will be there and hope that they're alive and they live long like me. So, but my son will be there and hopefully my son will be very grateful for having guided him and giving him good advice. Or maybe he might have some regrets, hopefully not so many, but hopefully will be I feel that he's a very important and potential musician. Probably he will be, in my last days, he will be playing some music for me, music that I like to hear and listen to, especially classical music. And yes, and probably, hopefully, my partner live long enough to be there by my side. And I imagine myself in those days in the countryside. I like a lot nature, and not only because research back this fact that nature is good for health, but I like to be in contact with the nature because it get me more peaceful and get me much more aware of myself and mindful. And I hopefully can spend my last days near a forest or near the countryside, listening to good music, not worrying so much. I'm not worrying so much lately, but no worries at all. I'm being more wise and can pass on some good advice to the new generations that will take on.
Well said, sir. Okay, here's another fun one for you. Now, let's imagine it's your last day on Earth and you can only preserve 3 items that will go in this time capsule of yours, right? And this time capsule will basically carry on your memories and your legacy and whatnot with you forever. What are those 3 items and why?
Well, so it can be tangible items. So I will leave my book, The Art of Compassionate Business, in the capsule for new generations. And I will leave also maybe the drawings of my children, if I have another a child, and also my current child and another child. So I will leave all the drawings of my children. And also I will leave also letters that I wrote to my partner, so in romantic letters, and I don't have anything else to leave. I won't leave, for example, obvious things like money or like a title or documents. No, I will leave things that are connected to relationship, that are signs or symbol of relationship. For example, art from my child or anything that is related to, for example, my research. This could be useful. I say like a testimony of how I live my relationship in life.
Very good. Very good. Okay. All right. Final question for you. What is your definition, Dr. Bruno, of a real estate rock star?
Real estate rockstar. Well, it's a person or a company, group of people that can not only identify opportunities, but they are fully aware of the human side of business in that sector. This means that they are caring for other participants in that sector. For example, employees working for the company, buyers, sellers, intermediaries, people in the bank sector, and they treat everyone with respect. And this rockstar not only becomes very profitable and wise, but also can rely on all these stakeholders, and this stakeholder can rely on them. So this means that it's a rock star because privilege relationship over the economic aspect, can build a strong relationship and at the same time make everyone wealthy and in a state of well-being.
Amazing, y'all. Again, Dr. Bruno Cignacco, I really appreciate you coming on today. Before we let you go, why don't you tell our listeners and subscribers out there how they can find and connect with you, best connect with you for that matter.
Well, they can find me. I have different websites, but my main website is www.brunocignacco with double C at the end.com. www.brunocignacco.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn. I generally post articles and also pieces of research on LinkedIn and interviews on a regular basis.
Wonderful. There you have it, folks. Dr. Bruno Cignacco from Argentina, from Italy, and now the UK, dropping knowledge. That's another one in the books for you. Another happy Wednesday. We'll come at you again next Wednesday, same time, same place. Another great guest on the Real Estate Rockstars. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
And